can see, it's Christmas time, and I'm just trimming my tree, and this time of year makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside, and because I'm feeling warm and fuzzy, I think it's time to review a game from the mind of board gaming's favourite bigoted racist. That's right, it's a H.P. Lovecraft game, and today's game is going to be...
Cthulhu! Death may die! Ho ho ho!
Hi Not Board Gamers, and welcome back to Not Board Gaming. I'm your host, I'm Mark. Now, today we're going to be looking at Cthulhu, Death May Die, designed by Rob Daviau and Eric Lang from CMON Games. Now, as board gamers, one thing that you can absolutely guarantee, no matter what genre of board game you're looking at, be it a dungeon crawler, be it a card-based game, be it a worker placement game, there is going to be, at some point, a Cthulhu-based game in those particular genres. Why is that? Well, because Lovecraft died whenever it was, 1937, so it's been more than 75 years since his death. That means his works are now in the public domain. It means that you do not have to have a copyright to use Cthulhu. There are certain aspects that people, of course, have copyrighted, but generally it's a nice and easy theme to kind of put onto a game. And that happens in a lot of genres, as I mentioned, and it's captured board gamers' imaginations. We like these kind of, the elements of demonic rises from the kind of depths, these tentacled creatures coming out, and you see it in, obviously, games like this. You see it in Arkham Horror, or Arkham Horror LCG, or Eldritch Horror. I know they're all part of the same universe. Or even in a game like Deep Madness, and the influence spreads far and wide. So why am I looking at Cthulhu Death May Die then? Well, this was a Kickstarter, I think, last year, and I didn't back the Kickstarter. And when it came out, just a few weeks ago, I could see some people playing it. And I know there was the really, really tall mini, and I didn't get that, of course. But yeah, I could see people playing it. I thought, oh, that kind of sparks a bit of an interest. So I looked a little bit further into it. And I could see that it was a kind of modular board system dungeon crawler that potentially didn't take itself too seriously. And I think that comes across in the very name itself. If you take away the kind of random number of kind of consonants and vowels that make up Cthulhu, the fact that it's called Death May Die, I mean, that's a little bit puntastic there. I think it's a little bit fun, and it actually kind of hints at the elements of the game itself and the fact the game does not take itself too seriously. So, I decided that I was going to buy the retail copy, and that's what I've done. I've got the retail copy here, and as you can see from the box, it's a nice, decent-sized box with some great artwork on there. And in the box, it shows you on the back, kind of a suggested layout. It tells you what you get inside, and there are a number of minis in there, including the Investigators. There's some great minis for Cthulhu and Hastur, and then some other minions that come out, and then the kind of cultists and the old ones, etc. So it's 45 highly detailed plastic miniatures, a rulebook, 17 double-sided tiles, 1 storyboard, 10 investigator boards, 64 mythos cards, 90 discovery cards, 12 insanity cards, 8 Elder One cards, 2 Elder One minion cards, 6 episode cards, 6 episode monster cards, 8 custom dice, 5 coloured bases, 30 plastic markers, and 147 tokens. So what does this game do that's a little bit different? Well, what it does is it works in an episodic way, is it will actually give you a number of episodes that you can play at any one time, and they don't link together, so it doesn't create a campaign. And that created a bit of an interest for me as well, because I think we've all potentially got enough campaign games. I know I'm kind of partway through many different campaign games, so that struck a kind of a chord with me. So I decided to buy it. I logged into my Amazon account and bought it. And it arrived about a week and a half ago, and I've played maybe about going on for 10 times right now. Now, do I like it? It kind of links to maybe some other games, and I'll talk about them as we get into the review and the gameplay itself. Is this a game that I think you should add to your collection? Does this game add anything new to the genre, or if it doesn't, does it do anything that's already in existence? Does it do it very, very well? As I say, it's a kind of almost light-hearted look at Cthulhu. There's they've taken this in a non-serious vein. So, without much further ado, let's go and have a look at the gameplay and my thoughts on Cthulhu, Death May Die by CMON Games. Come on, games. Cool mini or not. CMON, come on. So Cthulhu, Death May Die is at its heart, it's a dungeon crawler game. It's an episodic dungeon crawler game where, as a solo player, you're going to play 2 or up to maybe 4 of the 10 investigators that come within the base box. Now, this is the retail version. There are some expansions that you can get as well. There's Season 2 that you can get. There are also stuff that was Kickstarter exclusive. I only have the retail version. The first thing that you're going to do when you set your game up is you're going to choose one of the 6 episodes that come with the base game, and each of these episodes comes in its own unique little box, and then within this box you have a number of cards and tokens, etc., which give you a vastly different experience every single time that you play the game. Well, up to those 6 times. And of course there are some permutations that you can do. Because there are 10 investigators, that means that you can obviously use different investigators with different abilities to play the same episode again, or you can even have different elder ones as well. So here we've got Cthulhu, which is a damn fine mini, but in the base box you also get Hastur as well, that you can use on any of the episodes. There are also additional ones. You get the Black Goat, and I think Yog Sothoth, I think he's called as well, that you can add, and they add a different dynamic to the game. So what I've done here, for those of you that are thinking about getting the game, is I haven't set up episode 1. What I've done is I've set up episode 3. So if you are going to get the game, this obviously won't spoil the first episode for you, and that way, by the time you get around to episode 3, you've probably forgotten what I've said anyway. So we're going to look at this game in the vein of episode 3. So although it's episodic in nature, each episode works in a very, very similar way. The aim of the game is generally to destroy whichever Elder One you've chosen, because there are a number of cultists and they're performing a ritual to call that Elder One forward. However, at the beginning of the game, the Elder One is going to be on this particular mat here, on this player mat here, and you cannot attack that Elder One until they're brought onto the board. And there's only 2 ways that the Elder One can be brought onto the board. The first thing to bring him onto the board is if you disrupt the ritual, and each game has a different ritual that's taking place. Once you disrupted the ritual, the Elder One will come onto the board. Or the other way is as he progresses and as he advances, if he reaches one of these red circles on his map, then he will be brought forth onto the board. And that's it. And at that point, you can then attack the Elder One to try and destroy him before he destroys you. As I mentioned, each episode is different, and with each episode that you unbox, you get one of these cards, and these cards help you kind of dictate what you need to do. They give you a little bit of flavour text about the particular episode that you're playing, what you need to do to disrupt the ritual, what happens when the Elder One advances, and some special rules. But helpfully, on the back, it gives you the layout of using the modular tiles that come with the game, and this tells you exactly what tiles you need to place, where you need to place your cultists and your other creatures that go on there, and where these particular tokens go. And these tokens aren't the same in every episode. In fact, they're very different because each episode asks you to do something very, very different. And that's a real beauty in this game itself, is the fact that you can play these episodes in any order that you want, but they will provide a different playing experience. This card is very, very useful. Obviously, it helps you set up, and it goes on the player mat there, along with the cards of whichever Elder One you've chosen, how you can defeat them, which bad guys for that particular Elder One are put onto the board, and also which bad guys for that particular episode are put onto the board as well. So there's a real mix and match element going on. Different Elder Ones have different bad guys and different ways of kind of inflicting damage or making the game more difficult for you. So then what you're going to do, once you set the board up, is you're going to pick your investigators. And as I mentioned earlier, there are some 10 investigators that come with the base game. And each one has an element of asymmetry on there. Of course, on the back of each investigator's card, you get a little bit of backstory as well about them. And these investigators range from Morgan, the kind of Indiana Jones looking guy, to maybe you want this Lizzie Borden axe-wielding woman. Or maybe you want Sister Beth for some religion. in my game at the moment, I've got Rasputin here, the mad monk, as we all know, and over here, which you can't see, is the kid, which is a small girl who throws fire out of her hands. And what these, as I say, these are all asymmetrical. They have different skills and abilities on there that you can upgrade throughout the game. However, your main way of kind of tracking your character's health throughout the game is in these sections here. So as you can see on my player board, I've got this token on health, this token on stress, and this token on sanity. Now, of course, if you take too many wounds, your health is over, you're dead. If you take too much stress, what happens is any more stress you have to take means you take wounds, and what happens if the wounds get to the end? You're dead. But one of the first timers that you're going to see in the game is your sanity. And as this progresses along here, as you go more and more insane, as you witness more unspeakable things and do more depraved acts, then you're going to go more and more insane. And every time you reach one of these kind of purpley looking things on your player board, that actually gives you an upgrade ability on some of your skills, or some of the individual skills that are there. So that's a kind of a bonus for getting more insane. But also, if you see here, you've got this, it's got a little dice underneath it, and that gives you an additional dice, one of these green bonus dice, to roll when you're rolling for your combat. So, or any of the tests that you're doing there. However, unlike wounds, which can be healed, and stress, which can be healed, sanity only ever goes up. And when the sanity gets to the end and you become insane, again, that's game over. And that is essentially how you set up your character. There's also an individual insanity card that each character gets, and you deal those out randomly. And they have an effect, again, when your marker lands on one of these purple things here. So that's the board set up. Got my monsters set up. I've got my cultists set up. I've got the bad guys set up. I've got my character set up. Let's have a look at how it plays. Playing the game is a relative breeze, and largely in part that's thanks to this kind of really good and well laid out rulebook. It's only some kind of 19 pages long, and as you can see, there's lots of pictures in there, so there isn't that much text to read. And in reality, a lot of it feels very, very intuitive. And what you tend to get with some of these games, I'm thinking about Hellboy here, is they get bogged down in a lot of minutiae. A lot of things are added to what is essentially a relatively simple a dungeon crawler experience. What Cthulhu Death May Die does is it strips back a lot of that extraneous stuff and just takes you back to the core gameplay. So each character will take a turn, and they will follow that turn, and then the next character will take their turn. And as a solo player, that's really good, because what that means is that you're following a full rule of turns for one particular character, doing exactly the same for the next character, and you can even have 3 or 4 characters, and there's no additional bookkeeping there, and the turns are relatively straightforward. So on your player mat, it tells you what you need to do, what the turns are. And the first thing you do is take 3 actions. And the actions you can choose from are you can run, which is effectively moving, and move your character up to 3 spaces. You can attack 1 enemy, and I'll come on to how the combat works shortly. You can rest, so if you're in a space without an enemy, it was called a safe space, what you can do is take a rest, and that way you can claim up to a mix of up to 3 either stress or wounds, and mix and match that as long as there's no other enemy in your space. You can trade, so if you've got another investigator in your space, you can swap items between each other, or you can do episode actions as well. So each episode has individual actions, and as you can see on episode 3 on this card, there are a couple of actions here I could take. I could interrogate, which is to turn over 2 face down tokens, or I can usher ball goers as well, which kind of gets me towards my objective, but that's only on this particular episode. Those change with each episode. Once your investigator has taken those 3 actions, then what happens is you're going to draw a mythos card. It's a Cthulhu game, of course it's got mythos in there somewhere, and here's the deck of mythos cards. Now what happens is each elder god has 8 mythos cards, and each episode has 8 mythos cards. You mix them up into a big pile, and then you will draw one on every turn, and that will give you some effects. And generally those effects are negative, maybe adding baddies to the board, but they also have a cumulative effect, which I'll come on to in a bit. And then the action after that is you can investigate or fight. So If you're in a safe space and there's no bad guys in that space, what you can do is investigate. You can draw one of these discovery cards, and again, these are bespoke to each episode. And here, it will give you a couple of options. So this one says here, there's some flavoured text, and it says, if you have the wife as a companion, so you can get companions, you can discard this card. Otherwise, you can pay 2 stress to claim either the couple, so that gives you a companion, or the jewellery. And the couple gives you, as a companion, gives you somebody that's going to take some hit points from you. And the jewellery, when ushering in a ball goer, you may move them 1 additional space, which is 3 in total. And what you would do is, once you've got one of these discovery cards, you slide it under your player mat, thus, and that they can build up throughout the game, and you can get additional abilities that gives you certain powers throughout the game. And then what you can do after you've done the investigate or fight is resolve end of turn. And end of turn is if you've actually triggered anything where Cthulhu or the Elder One is going to advance, or there are some other effects on the board. That's it. That's one player's turn. Then what happens is you move on to the next player, or the next, so as I'm playing double-handed, it would be this player, and they go through that same motion. And that's a really, really good thing. There's no real bookkeeping. So let's delve into that a little bit more. So, let's have a look at move as one of my first actions. Now, it's a game. It's an action game. It's an action game with objectives. Nobody wins these games by standing still, so move is a key function of what you're going to do. So let's have a look at this character. This is Rasputin, as you can see. Rasputin is a fire-throwing monk. I don't know. Anyway, it's Rasputin. And what I'm going to do with my Rasputin is I'm going to move in his 3 spaces he can move on his move turn to this particular room here. I want to investigate these tokens. So there we go. There's 1 space there, 1 space there, 1 space there. That's absolutely fine. That's 3 moves. Of course, I could have stopped those moves short and stopped there and fought this cultist. But you know what? I wanted to run straight past him to get to these tokens. However, in a fiendish move that this game particularly makes, is when you pass through a room with any of the bad guys in there, they all follow you. Not 1, not 2, not a few. Every single bad guy will follow you if you pass through their space. And that's a great way of kind of funneling the combat in this game, because ultimately, as an action game, combat is key to this game. So chances are, no matter what you do, at some point within a couple of your turns, you're going to be facing combat. So moving on to fighting and combat, it's relatively straightforward and really kind of pleasing, but there is a large element of luck because it's a dice-based combat system. So say I moved into this space here and I'm going to fight this cultist. Each character starts with 3 black dice. There are more dice. There are some green dice, which are bonus dice, but each character starts with 3 black dice. These dice have different faces, should I say. The first one is a success, so if I roll one of those, that's a hit point against the cultist. The next one is an insanity. If I roll one of those, I have to move my insanity marker up once on my track. And the final one is a star. And what this star does is it maybe gives you some special abilities if you've got the right abilities. So here I can see that when making any roll, you may count 1 star as a success for Rasputin. There is also another face as well, which is a mixture of the tentacle and the success on there, so that gives you both on that. So here we go. I'm going to take on a cultist here, and as we can see from the cultist that they have a health of 2. So I just need to roll 2 successes from my dice. So what would happen if I rolled, I don't know, say 1 success, a blank face, and then I rolled a tentacle. So there we go. So that's only 1 success. So I would take one of my wound tokens, or one of these wound tokens, and place it next to the cultist there. But then, look here, I've got an insanity token, an insanity face, and what that means, as I said earlier, is my insanity moves up once on the insanity tracker. Remember, that never goes back down. Once you reach the end of that tracker, you're dead. Unlike wounds, which you can heal, you can't heal insanity. So it's very easy to actually start moving along, and it's perfectly feasible that you may roll on any particular roll 3 insanity. You may miss the cultist or whoever you're fighting against, and you're moving 3. And if you do that, you're almost a fifth of the way up there. However, there is a mitigation strategy against it. You can spend one of your character's stress to re-roll a die. But again, it's feasible that die may come back with an insanity on there. There is another face, as I mentioned, and this one here, which is a insanity and a success, and that gives you both. You get a hit, but also what happens is you also go insane slightly. Now, as you progress through this board, what you will see, as I mentioned earlier, is you get these little green markers, or the dice markers, underneath some of the purple markers on your insanity track. And what that gives you is that gives you a bonus dice as well. So that suddenly gives you more that you can actually roll and see if you get successes. Now, the good thing about the bonus dice is there is no insanity on the bonus dice. So they can either give you a success or give you nothing, or if there's a star on there and you've got an ability that activates on a star, it can grant you that. So that is how combat works. In the early stages, it's relatively easy to start knocking cultists off left, right and centre. However, as you go up through the game and as you move towards, say, Cthulhu, you'll see that, as we'll talk about how you get to his different stages, each stage he has 12 to try and defeat on that. So you need to beef up your character as you go along to make sure that you're getting more dice to enable your combat. And there you go. That's how combat works. And it works more or less the same way as well for the bad guys. So, for example, if I was being attacked by excuse me, a cultist, you can see here that he would roll 2 green dice against me, and those 2 green dice would either be a success or a miss. So they're relatively easy to defend against, but you can see on Starspawn, who has a health of 7, he gets 3 black dice, and it says here, when attacking or being attacked in a Riley space, and that's part of what Cthulhu does, add 2 tentacles to the roll. So when attacking or being attacked in one of these spaces, and that's when these things go on the board from Cthulhu, only from Cthulhu the bad guy, he would do 3 rolls and add 2 tentacles. So I would always get 2 insanity if I was being attacked by Starspawn in one of those areas. So that's kind of the attack phase from my perspective. The next thing is drawing a mythos card. So you've done your turn, you've done your actions, and then you're going to draw a mythos card. And I mentioned these earlier. There are 8 per episode and 8 per Elder One, so that means you would get 16 and you shuffle them up and then you would draw one. And effectively what these do is these will either give monsters on the board actions, they will bring more monsters to the board, and it also acts as a timer as well. I'll come on to how that works. So if we look at this one, it says Crawling Horror, and it says the nearest hunting horror moves 2 spaces towards you. So this guy was here on this map, he's a hunting horror, as you can, this guy here, and he would move 2 spaces towards me. 1, he's already in my space. Obviously, if I was over there, he would have moved 1, 2 towards me. And that means that I'm getting chased down by some of the bad guys. And it also gives you some summon options on this particular card as well. So there are a number of these kind of portal gates. There are 3 of them, a yellow, a blue and a red, that you placed on the map, and it says here, on the red one, summon a deep one, so there's the red one there, so that's another one there, and on the blue one, summon a haunting horror, so that's another one of these guys, and he's going to go there. And that's how it progresses, that's how you get more bad guys on the board, by drawing a mythos card, and you're going to draw one of these out every round. But also, as you can see, some of them, not all of them, some of them have this token. This is how the Elder One progresses. However, just before we talk about how we progress the Elder Ones, there's another stage, and that is Investigate or Fight. Now, I did mention earlier that if your Investigator is in a room with no bad guys, and what happens is you draw one of these Discovery cards, and invariably they give you some kind of boon. However, if there are bad guys in the room with your Investigator, then each and every one of those bad guys is going to attack your Investigator using the dice mechanics that I showed you earlier. Each one that you have shows you how many dice they're going to roll. And that's a really good thing. You start to feel the tension building up. And so therefore kind of running through a room and escaping to get to another room, but knowing that these guys are following you can really kind of bugger up you kind of a little bit later in the game, because you could be in a position where suddenly you're starting to get swarmed. But that's okay, that's part of the game. And early on, chances are, is that even if you have an encounter with 3, maybe 4 of the bad guys early on, it's not going to kill you. And as you progress throughout the game and you start improving the stats on your characters, then you get more abilities to defend yourselves. And you can also take a stress to actually re-roll an attack token, an attack dice as well, if the result isn't favourable for you. So yeah, let's now move on to the big guys that are coming. all this is very well and good. Your investigators are running around on this board. You're fighting out these cultists or Starspawn or hunting horrors or whatever bad guys you've got on there. And you're trying to disrupt whatever ritual is taking place by actioning whatever you need to do with these tokens and what's dictated to on the episode card. But we have this big bugger here, and this one is Cthulhu. Yeah, and as I mentioned, you also get Haster in the box as well. And what happens here, because he's not just for show, surely. No, he's not. I mentioned the Mythos cards and I mentioned this symbol. So every turn, your investigator will draw a Mythos card, and it's entirely possible that within 3 turns you've drawn 3 Mythos cards with those symbols on. Some Mythos cards don't have those symbols on, some of them do. And if you draw 3 Mythos cards at the end of turn phase, what happens is the Elder One progresses 1 move on his board up here, and as he progresses, it does say on various Elder One cards that when they advance that there are various things that happen. Like here I put a Riley token somewhere and that affects the gameplay, and this will continue. But at the moment, because the Elder One is on this board, I can't harm him. I can't beat this game at this stage, because to beat this game, the only way to beat this game is to kill the big bad. So how does he get onto the board? Well, as mentioned earlier, there are 2 ways for this guy to get onto the board. The first way is that you disrupt the ritual, the ceremony, and as soon as you disrupt the ceremony, what happens is Cthulhu or whoever you've chosen will come onto the board in your space and you can attack him. And what happens there is stage 1 of Cthulhu's cards moves on, and look at that, there's 3 more stages behind it. Now, as soon as you progress a stage, you don't lose that card, you move it to the side of your board, because whatever actions are on there happen along with the new actions on Cthulhu's card or on the Elder One's card. Here you can see it says, when revealed, summon Cthulhu into your space. Each enemy on a Riley space moves 1 space towards you. And he's got a whopping health of 12, and he would attack me with 2 black and 2 green dice. So, now he's on the board, my investigators can now concentrate on attacking him, but the game is still working against you, because on his board you will now put a proxy in his place, which is this thing. And there are 3 ways that this game can end. 3 ways. The losing ways are the fact that both your investigators get killed. You're both out of wounds, or you both go insane. That's it. Game over. The other way is that if this proxy continues down this track and reaches the end space, that's it. Everything is over. The cultists and Cthulhu, or whichever bad one you've chosen or Elder One you've chosen, have completed their task. The only way that you can win the game is by destroying the Elder One. Now, as you can see, on each stage there is 12 health. So that means that overall your investigators have got to deliver 36 health to the bad guy, and all the while he's chasing you down on the board. As soon as you get rid of 1 stage, and I say those actions stay in place, so as you're going through the end of turn actions, you'll still follow the cards that you moved out to one side. He may move off the board and he's got another 12 health, not off the board, to another space on the board. He's got another 12 health, and you're trying to track him down, but all the while you've got these guys kind of closing in on you. So you get this real kind of tense, fun, exciting atmosphere, this dreaded atmosphere, as the bad guys are just piling and piling and piling and piling onto you, and all the while you're trying to defeat the bad guy. And that, in essence, is how Cthulhu Death May Die plays. And that's only on episode 3 that I've shown you this layout here, and only using Cthulhu as well. As I mentioned, there are 6 episodes in the retail box, and there are 2 Elder Ones. And whilst I've been filming this, my copy that I bought of Yog-Sothoth has arrived. That's a different Elder One, so I can now add a 3rd Elder One. And what that means is each time you play, you may play the same episode again with different investigators to add some variability, and a different Elder One as well, because they add different ways of actually defeating them within the game. So it does try to provide an element of kind of replayability and tackling the same problem or the same episode more than once using different investigators and different Elder Ones. But is that enough for a game that literally that is kind of £70 and comes with 6 episodes in there? Is that enough variability to actually make this game worthwhile? So yeah, let's talk about the cost and the amount of playability that's in this game. There's no denying that this is a really fun experience. I'm not denying that in any way, shape or form. But as I mentioned, I think I paid around about £70 for the base game. That's not an insignificant amount, of course it's not. And you do get 6 episodes in there. You do get 10 investigators in there. And you do get 2 elder ones in there. But let's look at this. I mean, in reality, it is feasible, highly unlikely, that you could play each episode once and beat it. And then what the reason the game gives you then extra investigators and an extra elder one is that you go back and try it with a different permutation and you see if you beat it again. But that kind of takes away some of the kind of mystery of the episodes. You play through them all potentially. I mean, I've started on one and I'm playing through sequentially. You can do it in any order, there's no link between the two, and I'm sure that you'd be able to craft some kind of scenario campaign based system if you wanted to go through that. But the biggest amount of variability they're offering you with 10 investigators is, of course, the investigators. And I think this is where potentially my initial kind of doubt creeps in a little bit. I like the investigators, I really do. I think there's a good choice with the 10 investigators you've got, and the minis all look absolutely great. I just don't know if there's enough variability in the investigators to actually matter on the game. I couldn't tell you on the games I've won and on the games I've lost whether that's down to the combination of investigators that I chose, or whether it's down to some other factor. It's very difficult for me to say, and I think that's where the investigators tend to lose it. I think that is potentially the biggest kind of factor in replayability for Cthulhu Death May Die. Now, one thing I certainly can say is that whether I'm playing with Cthulhu as the Elder One or playing with Hasta as the Elder One, the game does change. So I can see me going through each scenario at least twice to play with the different ones, and now that I've got Yog Sothoth, another time as well. So that kind of, there's some real good in here. You get the amount of episodes that you've got, which is 6 episodes, which is not insignificant. You also get at least 2 Elder Ones, and more if you want to buy them. There's also the Black Goat, which I haven't got, and you get the 10 investigators. So there's a definite attempt by CMON to add a lot of variability in here, and I think it almost works as well. It may seem like I'm nitpicking a little bit with the investigators, but I just wish there'd been a little bit more difference between them. Certainly the 10 that come in the box, I think there needs to be more of an element of variability and asymmetry there. There are additional investigators that you can get in other packages, which I haven't got, but that does cause a bit of an issue for me. However, it's not totally a game-breaking issue. Why isn't it a game-breaking issue? Why, for a £70 game, where largest part of variability in that, the investigators don't actually offer enough variability to justify that price, why is that not game-breaking? Because the game offers you ways to actually kind of accent your investigators that you choose and create a different experience every time. So I think I mentioned earlier that you have sanity cards and you choose a sanity card, or an insanity card should I say, and these are all different. And what happens is that when you arrive on one of the purple spaces on your board, is that particular action or that particular insanity action is triggered. And here, this one for fear of crowds says take 1 stress for every other figure in your space, enemy or investigator. If you are alone, heal all of your stress instead. And these are different. I mean, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 10, 15 of those, and you randomly choose one of those each time. So that, on top of the player boards, does give you an element of variability as well. And also what happens is when you get certain companions, or you trigger certain things, or you get certain companions or certain discovery cards, what they will give you is additional boosts. So you may not have stealth. Here we go. If we look at Rasputin here, he doesn't have stealth here, and what stealth allows you to do is if you had stealth, you can move out of a room and one monster won't follow you. But it's perfectly feasible that you could draw a companion out of the discovery cards, and they will give you a stealth token, so you can do that. So there are ways to actually mitigate against just the I don't want to say basic level of variability, but the mild asymmetry that's in all the investigators. And I think that's a really good thing by Rob Davio and Eric Lang, is that they aren't relying purely on the player boards to offer a different experience every time. Okay, not board gamers. So, final thoughts on Cthulhu Death May Die. Look, I didn't know a great deal about this game before I bought it. I wasn't around in board gaming when the Kickstarter was launched, so I missed out on that. And then about 6 months or so ago, you could see that people were receiving the bigature on various forums. And I thought, wow, that's really cool, but kind of, I don't know what game it's for. And then within the last kind of month, people have started receiving their copies of the game, and a buzz started to build online. And then I saw it on Amazon, as I say, for about 70 quid for the base retail version. And I thought, yeah, I'm it kind of piqued my interest on this, but I had a big worry about this. Now, if you remember from one of my earlier reviews, which is Hellboy, and you can check the review by following the link above, is I wasn't overly enamoured with Hellboy. As a dungeon crawler, it was functional. It used the same kind of thing, these modular tiles on the map, and it had some great minis in there, but it had so many pieces and so many bits to do in Hellboy. It was a very fiddly game to set up and tear down, and it just thematically it did not work. And this, when I was looking at it, reminded me a little bit about a little bit of Hellboy. So I was slightly wary and trepidatious, but it arrived. I ordered it on Amazon, and the base game arrived, and I set up and I played through episode number 1. And almost from the offset, the fact that the rulebook is so well laid out that it takes maybe 30 minutes to learn how to play the game, and I could teach this game on the fly, setting up one of the episodes with brand new players within about 5 minutes flat with the game on the table. That's how easy the game is to set up. The fact that it's not loads of pieces sprawling all over the place. You're not essentially bookkeeping anything. All you're doing is keeping track of 2 or 3 different things, and that is it. The fact that it's not like Hellboy and it has 14 different decks of cards. Each deck of cards has its own place, and it all feels very, very functional to the game. Look, what kind of Rob Davio and Eric Lang have done is they've taken the very essence of a dungeon crawler, and they've stripped it right back to make it an efficient and streamlined and almost beautiful game to play. It's a joy to play. I have fun playing this game in a way that I did not think I was going to really enjoy this game. I thought maybe I'll play it 2 or 3 times and then think about selling it on. I just wanted to get a feel for it. But it's an absolute joy to play. And some of the miniatures, they're not just models, they're not just kind of aesthetic flavour. They absolutely, they work for the game, and the crafting on them is absolutely beautiful. As I said, it's just so many kind of little things in this game, many little cinematic moments that you experience during playing Cthulhu Death May Die that make you want to delve back in for another game. I have a mild issue with the asymmetry on the investigators. I wish there was, a little bit more on there. I know I've mentioned the insanity cards, and I know I've mentioned these various tokens that you can get on there, which do mitigate that somewhat. But I do wish there was a little bit more variability, because I don't know whether my choice of investigator or how I've played is responsible for me winning or losing a game. I can tell you that I do think that Cthulhu, as opposed to Hasta, makes the game a little bit more difficult for me. But again, that's only based on the 3 episodes that I played through so far. I will obviously be progressing through to episode 6. And then at some point, I want to buy the Season 2 expansion, which gives you even more episodes and more tiles and more maps. And I can see this game being a game that I play for a long time. Coming out so late in the year, it's really kind of from out of nowhere, it's really kind of rolling up in my ranks of one of my most enjoyable experiences. It is just pure fun to play. And I can't thank Rob Davio and Eric Lang enough for producing this game, for taking something which could have been complex, which could have been po-faced, which could have been just so serious and so fiddly, and making it feel like, I don't know, like you're watching a movie on a Saturday night. It just kind of it presents itself, you play through this movie, and you're going to have an absolute blast playing it. Look, time will tell as to whether my thoughts on the amount of replayability actually impact my enjoyment on this. You know, will I go back and play the episodes again? Probably at some point, but only when I've finished all 6 episodes in the base box. You know, will I enjoy it as much when I play through those episodes again? It's very difficult to say. I know how the various kind of rituals and curses are working, and I know the movement of some of the figures on the board now, so some of that mystique is lost, and I think that's the beauty in the episodic way that they're doing it. So hopefully, over time and over years, then more episodes will be released and more expansions will be released and maybe more investigators, and maybe this game can start to grow into something that becomes its own unique experience for people. Now, I really enjoyed this game. I think it's an absolute blast, and I would say if you're on the fence about this and you like this type of game, then absolutely devote the time and a bit of money into going out there and buying Cthulhu Death May Die, because for me, one of the most enjoyable, fun blasts I've had in a long, long time. Hi, not board gamers, and thank you very much again for watching my video review of Cthulhu Death May Die. As you can tell from the video, I think it's an absolute blast, and it's going to be getting to the table a lot over the festive period. As you can see, I've got my Christmas jumper on, as does Bubba. It's currently the 13th of December here in the UK. It's the day after the general election, and Bubba's just making me feel a little bit better about the results there. So I'm going to try and get another video out before Christmas, but if I don't, can I just wish each and every one of you a fantastic Christmas and a wonderful New Year, and I really hope you all have all the wealth, health and happiness that you need and you deserve. So thank you once again for joining Not Board Gaming. Remember, you can always like and subscribe to the channel, and please check out our other videos. So in the meantime, one final thought: if you can't find anybody else to play with, there's nothing wrong with playing with yourselves. Is that right, Bubba? Say goodbye. Bye. Happy Christmas.